Welcome to Search 185, where we discuss what it means to be human and made in the image and likeness of God. In our episodes, we discuss topics such as marriage, children, work, faith, fatherhood, and life in general. Our goal is to be a beacon of light to those that are searching for answers to life's biggest questions, such as, do I have a purpose in this world? Can I find meaning in life? Is it possible to find joy amidst the difficulties? And many other important questions. That is why we are called Search 185. The number 185 originates from the Gospel of Matthew, chapter 18, verse 5. Whoever receives one such child in my name receives me. We therefore extend our welcome to receive those who want to know Jesus more profoundly. It is also the chapter that illustrates how the Good Shepherd would leave the 99 sheep to search for the one lost sheep. Through our baptism, we are called to be another Christ and search for those who are looking for answers to life's greatest questions. So join us in this endeavor to discover the true, good, and the beautiful in the common and ordinary events of our lives. Now for your hosts, theologian Henry Avila and former mayor of Conroe, Texas, Jody Chakowski.
I'd like to welcome you to Search 185, and I'd like to welcome my host, Henry Avila. How we doing today, Henry?
Doing great, Jody. And yourself?
God is good, brother.
Amen to that.
All the time.
All the time.
Man, Henry, it's an interesting world out there, as we know, and I think today our podcast is a very important message, and just looking at marriage in general. And it seems like these days, I think I hear 40 to 50% range of couples are getting a divorce.
Yeah.
And I mean, what can we do better, man? How can we change that, sir?
Yeah. So this is a great topic because a lot of times us wanting to find a good husband or a good wife is sometimes a difficult task. And one of the reasons is because I think that today, especially men and women are waiting to get married later in life. They're being very pessimistic about finding someone in a lifelong, lasting, committed relationship.
It's hard to find a good mate.
It is. And so they're postponing their marriages till later in life. And there's some good things for that,
Sure.
But there's also some cons to that I think people need to make sure that they're aware of when they go into this, because they may get surprised later on. They're 30, 35, the pool of people that they're looking for to marry, much smaller pool.
Sure.
Those people that you do find may already have been married before, have children or whatever else. So
Most likely.
yeah, and so you've got to think of these things if you're going to postpone marriage, that this is a pretty high probability that you're going to end up with someone that is going to be maybe less than what you thought a husband or a wife should be. But, a lot of the people they don't want to make that lifelong commitment. But at the same time, no one wants to be unhappy for the rest of their life either. So, there's that balance between how do I find a good spouse and have a good, happy marriage? Not a good marriage, a great marriage is really what you want, not
Sure.
just a good marriage. And for men, especially, marriage statistically is a good thing. They tend to live longer when they're married. They're healthier, happier, and they're better financially. I mean, if you look at a guy who's, 30, 40 years old and they're by themselves, they tend not to be very prosperous, and it's
They stay out a little later at night.
yeah, sometimes they do. But, this is one of the things that as a guy, the Word of God tells us about a good wife. And everybody is very familiar with Proverbs 31 wife, right? And I just want to read a couple of verses here to kind of highlight what we're going to be talking about today, is especially as men, you and I talk about how to find a good wife. But I also want to encourage women to find a good husband, because I think that's a little bit harder to do, to find a good husband. Us when we're young and all, it's just, we're not looking for relationships a lot of times. We're just looking for fun. And a lot of times in general, women tend to start getting that sense of, well, I need to settle down and get married.
I met a lady on the beach on our vacation at Port Aransas last week, and nice lady, and daughter was, I believe, 38 years old. And she's like, you got any good significance in that, 34 to 45 range? And I said, it's hard. I said, I'll keep my eye open, but to find a good man is tough these days. And I said, no, my older friends from way back, I said, I wouldn't want to do your daughter like that,
Well, here's what the Word of God has to say about a Proverbs 31 woman, starting in verse 10. It says, a good wife, who can find? She is far more precious than jewels. The heart of her husband trusts in her, and he will have no lack of gain. She does him good and not harm all the days of her life. And he goes on to talk a little bit more about it, but here's the whole point is that when you find a good wife, and you and I mean, we've already talked about this before, we married up, right? Good. We found great wives, but a lot of times it's a roll of the dice if you're not thinking about it. I know growing up, the things that we're going to talk about today, no one told me about that. And you're just kind of taking a chance. And there's never any guarantees that you're going to, once you find a person with some of these qualities that we're going to be talking about today, it's no guarantee that you're going to have a great marriage, but your chances get better.
Your odds increase.
Right?
For
Your
sure.
odds increase much better if you've got some type of understanding and criteria of what you're going to be getting into. And I think that's what's important. One of the things that we've really have found ourselves in this situation, especially with men, that it's harder and harder to get, with someone that's a good partner, a good mate, someone that's going to be a good spouse. And in my personal opinion, I think it's men's fault that this happened. I don't think we've been the kind of men that women are looking for through all these centuries. We tend to lord, our dominion over women. And as a result, they tend to resent the masculinity part of men. And masculinity is not supposed to be something negative. It's supposed to be something positive that adds to the relationship, but it's viewed negatively because sometimes we don't know how to behave. And we just men in general sometimes don't take responsibility for their actions and don't take care of what they're supposed to be providing for.
We need to step it up for sure. I mean, it's our role to be the leader of the household and leader at church on Sundays as well. And I think a lot of men have forgotten about that.
It is. And this conflict between men and women really rose from the very beginning. You look at Genesis, right? What happened? Disobedience. Sin enters the world. And God tells the woman, your husband is going to have dominion over you. And what happens? Man, they're bigger, they're meaner, they're tougher, they're stronger. And what do? They take advantage of those who are less than them, weaker. And so it was a product of sin. And of course, with men, it's mostly not just sin of dominating or being in control, but of pride. That we think that it's all about me.
The pride seems to pop its head up in every conversation.
It does. And women reacted to that, especially in the late 1800s or early 1900s with the rise of feminism. Right? You have women who are thinking, well, we should have the ability to do some of the things that men do, to vote, to own property in our own name, et cetera, et cetera. And I think those things are good. I think it was important that we as men realize that we can't treat women, especially our wives, like property. No one wants to be treated like that. And that's definitely not the Christian way to live. When we read the Word of God, we're supposed to be men that love their wives, and men that love their wives don't lord it over them. They don't treat them like slaves. So, then after this, feminism really took a turn, and it went into radical feminism, and women started feeling like they needed to be doing everything men did, and it caused a problem. It caused a division between the two and the natural roles that come in those particular relationships. And so what happens is now that, women are going into the workforce and the government is raising our kids in government schools, and daycares are raising our kids. And I'm not saying that women shouldn't work. I think it's perfectly fine if that's what you feel you're called to, but they should be able to have a choice, right?
Sure.
To say, hey, I want to be a mom and I want to be able to stay at home with my kids, instead of society pressuring them into thinking that the only way to be a successful person is to make money.
Yeah, and be independent.
Yeah. So to me, I think today we're seeing kind of a shift. What do you think? Do you think more and more women are starting to leave the workforce and starting to be stay-at-home moms?
I think a lot of people are realizing that, fame, wealth, money, it's all fun. I mean, it might be a little insurance, but at the end of the day, we're here to make babies and raise them up to face the light and spread the word and take it on to the promised land. And all we leave is our legacy, which is our children. And, I've been in the path of careerism before or looking for fame and fortune, and it will definitely distract you. But, it's nice to get back and get focused on those little ones because they're only little for so long, as you know.
It is. And always reflect on the I wished I would have type of scenario. I try to put myself at, it sounds a little morbid, but at my deathbed thinking, do I have any regrets?
Yeah, not morbid at all. It's
right. To think, what could I have done differently? Or now that I'm about to depart this world, what would I do differently? And I don't want to be laying there going, I wished I would have, and then fill in the blank, right? Spend more time with my wife or my children or my grandchildren. In the end, and we've said this before, that no one ever says, I wish I would have spent more time at work when you're on your deathbed. It's always about relationships. And there's nothing like the relationship between husband and wife.
I've never heard a man or lady on their deathbed say that they wish they wouldn't have had that last kid. It's always, I wish I would have had another, or 2 or 3 more for sure.
And that's one of the critical things that if we don't start to really look at those things while we're aging, while we're going through our 20s and our 30s, there's consequences to some of that, and there's some good things. Is it hard? Absolutely. You and I know as dads and as husbands, it's hard to be a father and a husband.
Very hard.
But I would tell anyone who would ask me, it's all worth it. And I would never trade a single moment of my fatherhood and being married to my wife for anything in the world. It's my treasure that I just can't do without. This is who I am.
That's what it's all about for sure. Yeah. I think, what we're getting at is finding the right person to marry is very important in your life and in your direction long term.
It is, and I've told my kids and I tell others, and, this is not something I came up with, other much smarter people than me, but there's 3 of the most important events in your life that are going to occur. And in order of importance is where you're going to work, what type of work you're going to do. And the reason that's important is because if you do have a family, you're going to want to be able to provide for them at least the basic needs, right? And if you're working at McDonald's and you're trying to raise children and all, nothing wrong with working at McDonald's, don't get me wrong, but if you're trying to raise children and provide for them in a manner that, for their future education and everything else, sports, I mean, you know how expensive it is when kids get into sports and whatnot. You're going to want them to be able to do that. So where you work, what kind of work you're going to be doing is a very important decision that you have to really contemplate while you're young, because it's going to make a huge impact in your life.
My kids, I've told them before, my wife and I now, we both work for ourselves, and it's nice because I can work while taking a cell phone call and driving them to the beach in Port Aransas. And sometimes there's hey, get off the phone. I'm like, well, most dads are at home for 8 to 5. Say I got to take a phone call, but we're driving to the beach. Overall, it's a blessing that you guys will understand one day.
Yeah, no doubt. And the second thing that's of next importance is who you're going to marry. That's a life-changing decision. Why? Because if you're going to take your marriage seriously, if you're a Christian and you marry, we form a covenant. And in our Christian faith, a covenant is way more than a promise or even a contract. A contract can be amended, right? It's an agreement, an exchange of property. But a covenant is an exchange of persons, as Scott Hahn would say. I'm yours and you're mine. And marriage, in the context of the Christian faith, is lifelong. One man, one woman for the rest of your life. And society may say, well, that's just not feasible, right? What if you get tired of that person?
Mm-hmm.
With God's grace, this is why it's important, because marriage is not just a part-time thing that you do. It has to be a lifelong commitment, because we were made for commitments like this, for covenants.
I think it's one of the most beautiful things, if not the most beautiful that I've ever experienced, and best thing that I ever did. But yeah, it's sad. You go just pick off anybody off the streets, and their feedback on marriage is the majority of the time is going to be negative.
Very
negative. And I think a lot of people, they have it all wrong for sure.
And I think hopefully as we go through some of these points here about how to find a good husband or a good wife, that the young people who are looking at marriage or entering into marriage might start to contemplate some of these things. And the third thing is your relationship with Christ. That's the most important one, because that determines your eternal salvation, right? What's going to happen after you die. And that relationship with Christ, as we've covered in other podcasts, is crucial. It is the main purpose that God created us. He created us for himself and to have that relationship with him. And what does he want? He wants us to be with him for all eternity. And so that's the third and most important thing, your relationship with God, and how are you going to make that prosper and flourish in your life. But today we're going to be talking about number 2, which is the importance of who you marry. All right. So one of the things that I want to do is kind of propose a set of rules and guidelines. Again, some of these things are going to be very general. I'm not being an absolute on these things. I may say some things about men, but in general, men are like this, or in general, women are like this. And that's what I want to make sure people understand, that, somebody may be listening and go, "Oh, I'm not like that." So, yeah, in general, men tend to be certain ways.
What he's saying is hold the comments until we finish.
Until we finish, right? And just really contemplate about that, because I think even in some of those men that may say, well, I'm not like that, I can assure you, if I say, well, you got pride in your life, there's not a single man out there that can say, well, I'm not like that. Just right there with that comment, you just proved my point.
Sure.
That you have pride in your life. So we all have flaws, and some of these things are very general comments and recommendations. But I think as we go through some of this, we'll see that they make a lot of sense. Again, I wanted to emphasize that when you follow these guidelines, there's no guarantee. People change over time, and situations change, and maybe you just don't get it right. The issue with this is these are guidelines. So don't come back and go, "Hey, I did everything you said. I checked the list off, and I still got a terrible wife," or whatever. This is just some things to contemplate and hopefully get you over that hump where maybe you just can't see across to the other side to what it should look like.
No guarantees, but it'll help.
But it'll definitely help. I guarantee you. That I do guarantee it will help. I've been married for 40 years now.
Beautiful.
And I can honestly tell you that I love my wife more than ever. And people may say, how is that even possible? You're with the same person for 40 years. But it's like anything else. It's like a friendship or anything else. When you share even the difficult times together with someone, those things are meant to bring you closer together, not further apart. And it's kind of like when men go into battle, right? And they enter into warfare, and they're with their buddies there, and they're helping each other out. And over time, they build a friendship and a brotherhood that is inseparable. They realize that through those difficult moments that they endured, it brought them closer together. And I think that's what marriage is supposed to do. You're a team. My wife was always telling the kids, we're like a team. We're together. We all have different roles we play. We all have to contribute. We all have to work hard at this. So it's important that we understand that it's going to be difficult, but those difficult moments are meant to bring you closer together, not further apart. But I don't know, what are your thoughts on some of the guidelines and things about men? What do you see that men in general are, how different they are from women when we're talking about relationships?
Yeah, I mean, it's apples and oranges. What I've seen, men are more visual than women, and are attracted by what they see. I'll leave it at that. So ladies, if you want a man to see you as a person, have modesty. Dress in your dress and behavior. Otherwise, he's going to observe your body, and that's what he's going to pay attention to. So, you dress like a hoochie mama, you're going to attract hoochie daddies. I mean, so it's as simple as that. Women are also attracted to what they see, but in general, they're more personal and relational when it comes to choosing their partner. They want to communicate. They want to share their stories. They want to establish a relationship. It's in their nature to want to nurture both their man and their future children as well.
Yeah. And again, these are general statements. Men can be nurturing too. I'm not saying that at all. But when we're talking about young persons, teenagers, for example, guys are, like you said, they're more visual. The first thing that they observe is, wow, she's pretty. And women, yes, of course, oh, he's handsome or he's good looking, whatever. But then that next level for women tends to be, well, let me get to know him, right? I want to know about him.
You see men all the time that attractive theirness, that they might be a 4 and the woman's a 10, and you can tell there's something different there going on for sure.
Yeah. And women tend to marry, guys that are out of their class, as far as below them.
Yeah.
Right? And part of it
I think we're examples of that.
We're very good examples of that. And part of that reason is because they found a connection that wasn't related strictly to how they look. And women tend to see a little bit further into the future. Is this going to be a good husband? Is this going to be a good father for my children? And they may not consciously be thinking of that, but I think it's in their nature to want to know that, okay, I'm going to need someone who's dependable, who's trustworthy, who's going to be there when we need them. Is this guy that person? And if they're not, then hopefully red flags are being raised, and they're starting to question whether or not this guy, as good looking as he may be, or maybe the best athlete on the football team or whatever, is that really what I want to marry? And those are the questions that people are going to need to ask themselves.
And it seems those traits from what you're interested in at 18 years old, or what you're interested in at 28 or 38,
there you go.
They can rapidly change. But
very much so.
So what do you think? I mean, how does a young man or young lady these days, how do they find a good husband or a good wife?
The first thing I think we should address is that if you wanted to find a good husband or a good wife, you need to get your own act together. No one wants to come up and find someone who, doesn't bathe often, doesn't comb their hair,
Sure.
It's just a slob. So take care of yourself. Be the kind of person that someone would want to marry, right? Be trustworthy, be ethical. Ask yourself, does this person, lie a lot? Do they steal? And
Sure.
Are they always looking for something underhanded? Those should be red flags to someone who's looking to the type of person they want to marry. They need to be dependable. If they say, hey, I'm going to pick you up at 7:00 and they show up at 7:30,
Yeah,
it's like,
that's a sign.
it's a sign. And if it's something that happens often, if it's occasional,
Yeah.
something happens, not a problem. But if it's habitual, you can start to tell this person is not dependable. They don't do what they say they're going to do.
Sure.
And to me, I think that's important. Another aspect that for yourself is not to talk about other people behind their back. Gossiping. Is this person a gossiper? Because when you're young, especially in high school or even in college, that tends to be a huge aspect of relationships. It's putting other people down
Sure.
so that you elevate yourself. And that's a sign of immaturity.
Yeah, insecurity as well.
Exactly. And that's not the kind of person you want to marry. So don't be that kind of person. Be the kind of person that whenever you're around others and they start to talk about others, say, you know what, I'm not going to do that. And plus the scriptures tell us that gossipers will not inherit the kingdom of God. And it's a serious sin. Why? Because it can ruin a person's reputation. And in this world, that's pretty much all we have. I mean, if, I teach at our church, and if something happens, someone says something bad about me and ruins my reputation, and it's not true because of gossip, then how in the world are they going to trust me to teach teenagers or teach children or be an instructor there at the church? They're just not going to trust me. So that changes my whole life. It changes my whole ministry in my apostolate to spread the word of God. So it's huge.
Now, I've run for office twice, and I'll tell you, it is huge.
I can't even imagine. That's a whole different world there.
It's interesting. I was getting ready for a confession a few weeks ago, and just going through the research there, and basically discussing that even if you're telling something that is true about someone, but you're using it in a manner to hurt them, that's a sin. And I was
Yeah.
like, I didn't know that. I thought, dang, if it's true, and he said it about me, something else about me, then I can share that about him as well. But I was off. Learn something every day.
Learn something new. And that's all right, because I think that's part of our strategy in life should be that we should always continue to want to learn, right? Be open about learning. One of the other things that to look at whenever the type of person you want to be, you talked about it, touched on it here just a second ago, is about dressing modestly. And this is mainly for women, because I know that women want to be liked. People want to be liked in general. So when a girl puts on makeup and looks pretty, does her hair and everything else, it's because it makes her feel good, but it also is to attract someone potentially to be a future husband. They may not think of it at that manner, but that's eventually what that leads to, is to make a connection with someone so that maybe this person may be the one that you marry and end up being, having kids with and having a life with, and nothing wrong with that. But you mentioned also that men are very visual, and we are. It's important that men appreciate you as a woman for who you are, not for what you look like. Because think about it, after the first baby, or in 10, 15 years, like you said,
we all
change.
We all transition.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. We all,
some better than others.
Some better than others. We all transition, and that thing that attracted him to you is no longer attractive.
Yeah.
And if there's no substance to that, that's another thing. In general, men tend to be a little bit more shallow and superficial than women in general. And so if that's how you pick someone to marry because they find you attractive and that's it, you're going to be headed for potentially a divorce there later in life, because the guy's going to say, well, she doesn't look like she did when she was 20, and they're going to go look for someone younger or whatever. But again, it's not a guarantee, but it's definitely something that you want to take that part of the equation out of the picture, so that he sees you as a person, not as an object for his pleasure.
True.
But I guess the other thing is that you need to be the type of person that's willing to work hard and sacrifice. Being a husband and father is about sacrifice. If we don't put our families first, our spouses first, then the marriages suffer. And they feel it. The kids feel it. Your spouse feels it. You need to be able to be the person that is going to be willing to sacrifice your time, and even your money or whatever else it takes to make sure that you're that kind of person that they're looking for.
I tell a lot of young men that are career driven that, hey, it's just like your business or job or widget. I mean, if you don't work it and take care of it, it's not going to work out. And you need to definitely put as much attention into your marriage more than you do your career.
More so. Absolutely. And in your career, you deal with relationships, but the business is something very different than a person. And people need constant attention. They need constant evaluating where they are, their emotions, their mental, health and everything else needs to be taken into account. It's very important. Anything else that you think is important? Any other aspects?
No, I have two daughters, and I've got a 16-year-old, and she's honest and a good girl. Fortunately, she took after her mom. But these days, just going out and trying to find a bathing suit, it is tough. Yeah. And especially if they're a little more blessed up top, if you know what I mean. So it is it's interesting to go out there and almost like there needs to be a new company started that sells clothing that is non-revealing. But I know as a man, when I was young, like I said, you show someone everything, they know exactly what's there. But if you keep it hidden and like I said, maybe expose that another day, it's you're going to keep them around a lot longer, for sure.
Yeah, no doubt. I think another aspect that we need to think about, besides just making sure that you fix yourself first, is in life in general, when we settle for something less than the best, when you settle for second best, that's exactly what you're going to get. And I'll tell my kids this, but most especially for women, because again, when men are young, we're very superficial in general. And so women have to be very careful, because if they're going to pick a guy that doesn't have good qualities, as we're going to be talking more about here, then you're picking somebody that's second best or maybe even third best. I don't know. But on down the line, the lower that you go, don't expect to get anything better than that. Because if you settle for second best, that's what you're going to get. And I think that's important. So what are you to do? Set your expectations high. The person has to be honorable, ethical, like we had talked about, trustworthy and dependable. If you keep your standards high, then it's going to be harder to find a guy like that. But remember, what we're talking about is how to find a good husband or a good wife so that you have a great marriage, not a second-rate or mediocre marriage. You want your marriage to be full and prosperous in your life.
A plus.
A plus. That's just really, no one goes into a relationship hoping that it's going to be terrible.
Yeah. I saw in younger years, especially out of college in the mid-20s, I knew a lot of young ladies and some young men as well, but they would get married because their friends are. So they felt, hey, this is what I need to do. This is what my mom wants me to do, or my dad likes this gentleman, and they would settle for a number 2 or 3. And the majority of times, those marriages, they don't work in the long run.
Yeah, and you mentioned that they're getting pressured a little bit, right? There's a certain sense of pressure, and even as you're talking about with clothing and bathing suits, there's a pressure even from their peers. It's like, you're going to wear that to the beach or to the swimming pool, and the other girls have the bikinis or whatever, and you're trying to, as a girl, trying to dress modestly, you're going to get made fun of, right? So there's always that pressure that we always have to deal with too. But I assure you that if you don't cave into that pressure, as humiliating as it might be, you want to be able to have a relationship that's going to be meaningful and not superficial. If you do, for example, decide to settle for second best, well, that's fine. Just know that that's the kind of relationship you're entering to, and that you're going to have to live with that. And it's going to be tougher, and there's going to be some disappointments. But if you're okay with that, if you think you're okay and you think you can handle that, then, at least you go into the relationship with open eyes and knowing and understanding that this is going to be a difficult one. And it's your choice, right? It's your choice. Just don't go into it ignorantly, right? Not knowing that this is something that you could end up regretting later on. But I don't know, what other criteria do you see that might be helpful for people?
I mean, I was blessed. I had a good mama, so I knew what a good lady and a good mother was supposed to act like, and I knew when I was younger, some of the things I was doing and places I was hanging out, it wasn't necessarily what my mother would be doing at the time. So I knew that I needed to find a good woman to bring me up, and I don't know about you, but I was always attracted. I mean, we were raised in the Roman Catholic faith, and we're my family's cradle Catholics, and mother was a convert, but I kind of wanted to marry a Catholic woman for the reason that we understood each other. Not saying that I didn't date non-Catholics, and I wouldn't have kept that out as an option, but that was my little tribe I was comfortable around. But I definitely had a good mom to look up to, and my wife is very similar. So
yeah. So what do you think about going to look for a husband or a wife in, let's say, a different situation like a nightclub?
Well, I tell people all the time, best place to find a woman is church or the grocery store. But I did find mine at a bar and grill. There was a restaurant there as well. So, and we turned out great. But, I think you've said it before. It's, don't leave that out. But when you go out in the evening to have a good time, necessarily think that this might not be the space that I want to find my spouse. And our faith is everything. So you want to look in places to find a man that brings you up in your faith, because you mention it all the time. It's God first and family second and us number 3. So always focus on number 1.
Yeah, I think it's important for young people to know that it's okay to go out dancing and having fun, but that's what nightclubs are for, right? To go out, dance, have fun with your friends, and dance with whoever you meet there. But don't go there specifically looking for a husband or a wife, because you just never know. You're a good person. You're out there dancing and everything else. I'm sure there's other good guys or girls out there just out there to have fun. So nothing wrong with that at all. Just don't make it a focus that's the place that you're going to find your spouse, because they're fun.
Try St. Joseph's or HEB.
Right. Anything, like you're saying, the environment's going to be important. I'm not saying you can't find a wife if you go to a nightclub, because you may dance with a girl that, man, she's just like the one you're looking for, and she's there just to have fun and go dancing with her friends just like you were, and it works out.
You know, it took me 3 years to teach my woman how to two-step.
Is that right? Well, she had to teach me how to two-step.
She had to teach you how to two-step.
Yep. So, but it worked out. You know, there's going to be good people there, but again, the focus should be, that's the place I want to find my future spouse. But, you know, the next guideline, I guess, that I would say, this is a little bit more for women, especially when the kids are young. I mean, if you're 30 or so and you're looking for a spouse, this may not really apply as much, but, don't go looking for a man that's a fixer-upper. And what I mean by that is, like, you know, fixer-uppers are good for cars and houses, right? Homes you can fix up and sell them right around, and
go flip one.
Go flip one in a car too, you know, fix it up and go sell it. But men, man, they're hard to be molded into what you want them to be.
I got some lady friends. It seems like they go from one fixer-upper to the next one, you know, and put a little polish on him and send him down the road.
It's send him down the road. But here's the thing. A man's not going to change if he doesn't want to.
Sure.
And I think a lot of times women go into a relationship saying, you know, yeah, he's broken, you know, but it's kind of finding like that lost puppy, right? You just don't know what that dog's going to turn out like once you start raising him. And so you don't go out there looking and feeling sorry for these guys that are broken. They're broken for a reason. And I'm not saying they don't deserve a good wife. That's not at all what I'm saying. But what I'm saying is, you need to be aware that if you're going to go find and you fall in love with a guy that's broken, that if he doesn't want to be repaired, he's not going to do it. You can't love him into making him to change. Now,
say that again so people can hear that.
You can't love him into making him change.
Sure.
You can love him all you want, but if he in his heart is not ready to change, or he doesn't think he needs to change. There's men out there that are like, you know, I'm fine the way I am. If you're going to marry me, you're going to marry me the way I am, you know, and this is what you've got. And some women think, well, you know, I'll make sure that, you know, I take care of him, I love on him and everything else, and he'll change. And it's like, no, if he doesn't want to change, he's not going to change.
Well, they say you're going to marry a cowboy, you got to put up with the bruises.
Or if you're a rodeo cowboy, that's one of the.
Or are you going to drive a sports car? You're going to have to pay the tickets, huh?
That's exactly right. And it's one of those things that, you know, women will say, well, I found my husband and, you know, I've got him trained, you know, and then I'd never leave him because it's too much work to train again. So I guarantee you, if a guy doesn't want to be trained, he won't be trained.
Yeah.
Most of the time, us guys that are, you know, our wives say, well, I've already trained him. I got him the way I want him, is because we said it was okay.
Yeah.
Most men in general are going to be willing to give up a few things to keep peace in the family, right? To keep the peace going. And it's like, fine, I'll be this way because it's important.
Or the other term, cheap to keep, but expensive to get rid of, huh?
That's right. But here, men need to also understand that they have to have a heart that is more like Christ's, that needs to be able to be molded. If a guy doesn't have a reason to want to change, and just falling in love with you may not be enough of a reason to change, there needs to be something much higher accountability that he has to be looking at. And that's where faith comes in. This is where your upbringing in your faith helps you to understand that there's consequences to not being the type of man that you're supposed to be, not just for your wife, but the kind of man that God wants you to be.
And I don't see how you could do it without faith. I mean, we all have to have something to look up to, and you might stay in there for 10, 20 years, but, you know, couples that are been married for 70 years and they don't have faith. I don't know. I'd love to interview a couple of them.
Yeah. Well, they tend to be roommates.
Yeah.
Pretty much is what it turns out to be. But without that connection, without that higher accountability, someone to be accountable to that's higher than you, a lot of times people just bail in their relationship.
Mm-hmm.
But if the expectation that God has of you as a husband and a father is clear to you, and your obligation to him and to your role as a husband and father, then you're going to push through the difficulties. You're going to overcome those temptations to want to abandon the relationship and work through them. And I think that's what God expects of us, is that we're going to be the type of men that work through these things, the difficult things, and provide strength and stability for the family that he put you in. And so it's like you said, I don't know how people do it without having God's grace working in their lives. And this is why the Catholic Church holds marriage as a sacrament, which what that means is it's a covenant, and you don't break a covenant. A covenant is for the rest of your life.
Yeah, I've seen you can work through any problem if you want to, and you're willing to put the energy and time, and I've seen that with a lot of struggling marriages that people I've talked to and tried to help. It's like if they're willing to set their differences aside, forgive each other, seek counseling, spiritual guidance. You definitely need some help from someone else.
Absolutely.
And a lot of times it's issues that they inherited from their childhood, and but if you don't ever get rid of them, it's like fleas on a dog. They're not going to jump off themselves, and it either ends or they work it out and come together and forgive each other.
And that's an important thing, that if you see that there's major issues before you get married, be sure that those things get taken care of through therapy or counseling, whatever needs to happen before you get married. Work through those things out. Now, if you don't discover them till after, or they don't manifest until after you're married, that's a different situation. But before you get married, if you already see these telltale signs of mental illness or any other, let's say, baggage that they're carrying that's going to be brought into the marriage, it needs to be resolved before you enter the marriage. Because if you're like, oh, we'll take care of it after we get married because we're in love, love will conquer it. No, you need to fix it before you get in. Otherwise, these things could get out of hand, and you're not going to be following some of these rules we're telling you. Do it before you get married if you can.
Yeah. My wife says all the time she rolled the dice with me, and I can tell you she did. She could have crapped out real quick. But I don't know about you, but we did go through. We got married in the church, and we did go through the marriage prep classes, and I thought they were awesome. I remember taking a little test almost, and almost like a little profile test, and at the end of it, the counselor, the guy, people guiding or counseling there, they said, look, you're different. I mean, this is who he is, this is who you are, and there's nothing wrong with that. But you just have to understand that, and I think anybody getting married these days, whether it's in my church or somewhere else, you ought to take some similar classes to understand what like an owner's manual.
Yeah, and I think it's important to understand the other person's personality, their characteristics, what they like, what they don't like. There's a whole list of things that you could. This is why you experience this before you get married. You ask questions like, "What's your favorite food?" and what kind of movies do you like? What music you like? And what's your family like? And meet the family. And we'll talk a little bit more about that here in just a second. But you've got during that time that you're trying to discern whether or not this is the one. You've got to probe the situations, because if there's some serious issues in the family already, you're going to want to make sure that those things are taken care of before you enter into marriage. I'm not saying don't marry someone that has, family issues. Those things can be overcome. We all have issues, and none of us would get married if we didn't. But make sure that there are things that can be worked on prior to getting married, or if you get married and they manifest afterwards, like I mentioned, be sure that you're humble enough to say, we need help, and let's work through these things, identify it early, and work through it.
Those daddy issues, as we call them, can take years, lifetimes to work out.
They can. And another thing kind of for the ladies is, in general, the men are the providers. They're the ones going to go out to work in a household where the mom stays at home. And if that's going to be the case for you, let's say you're the type of lady that wants to be able to raise kids. Well, be sure that you're looking for a guy that's not going to be lazy. right? Don't get a guy that has no initiative or motivation in life. You know, if he likes to just sit at his parents' houses and not work and play video games, it's like, that's a red flag. And don't think you're going to change him either, because if he doesn't want to change, he's not going to change. And he needs to have a good work ethic. He needs to have already, I mean, I started working when I was young. I mean, even before I could drive, I was already working.
Same here.
And I never understood it. The only reason I worked was because I was getting money. So it was benefiting me. But in reality, the wisdom of, you know, my parents is that they helped to develop a good work ethic in me, that you don't get something for nothing. You work for it. You go and you earn your money, and then you purchase what you want to get. Don't expect others to give you those type of things. And to me, that's crucial, that if a guy doesn't have a good work ethic, it's going to be tough. You know, 30, 40, 50 years, however long you're married, when the guy doesn't want to earn an income, you know. Yeah,
I grew up working for my father doing construction, you know, as an adolescent boy, and you know, God bless his soul, he taught me how to work and get up and hustle every day, and nobody's going to give you anything, you know. So definitely you want to find you a man that's not scared to put his work boots on in the morning.
Absolutely. And really the thing that points to is that this young man is willing to sacrifice lesser goods for greater goods. In other words, giving up certain hobbies or certain things that they like for the sake of becoming a better husband, a better father, or a better future husband and father, right? Where they're thinking about, this is a skill that I need to develop. This is a virtue and a characteristic I need to develop because it's going to make me better later on. Now, you know, you and I, we don't think like that when you're 15, 16, 17 years old. That's not even remotely in most of our heads. But that's what our parents are teaching us when they do put us to work, when they teach us to sacrifice lesser goods, like certain hobbies, for things that matter more. And there's nothing wrong with that. Life is going to be filled with these kind of choices. Yeah, that's a good thing. Going out to play golf, great thing, but not at the expense of a greater good, which is to be present at home with your family or help your wife with the kids or whatever it is, instead of playing golf if they conflict, right? You may be able to find time to go play golf. That's great. But if it conflicts with family or with your marriage or whatever it is, you need to be able to give up that lesser good for the greater good.
Yeah, I had a young man tell me one time, maybe 10 years ago, but he was getting married. He's like, but you know, I'm going fishing every weekend, and I'm still going to take off 2 weeks for my hunting season. And I'm like, good luck, buddy. Yeah. God bless you. I ain't talked to him in a while, but if I'm a betting man, he's not married anymore.
Well, that's the kind of attitude that in general,
yeah. I mean, we
men have,
we
right?
think that, yeah.
We think like, hey, I'm not going to
think again.
Yeah, exactly. There's consequences to that.
Yeah.
You can still go do it. Absolutely. You want to go fishing every weekend and whatnot. But there's going to be repercussions for that if you're a husband and a father, because you can't expect that your spouse is going to stay in the weekend. You know, oh, I need a break for the weekend. Well, what about mom that is raising kids every day, all day long, and now she wants a break, and she's not going to get a break on the weekends either. So it's about selfless giving of self.
I can build a little animosity.
Very quickly.
Very quickly.
Very quickly. And if, you know, a guy says that, well, I don't care what she says, I'm going to do this, then there's going to be consequences with that. And not every woman's going to put up with that.
Yeah.
And I don't blame them.
Yeah.
I don't blame them.
Some might even jump the fence.
Yeah. So another point is to also get to know the family of the person that you might potentially marry.
Very important.
We talked a little bit about that here just a second ago, but let's elaborate a little bit more on that. What are some of the things in other people's families that, as you're dating, as you're getting to know each other, that are important to see in the family life of the other person?
Well, as you know, you're marrying the family as well, and they can have a major influence on you and your spouse and children. And I've been blessed. I mean, my mother and father-in-law, I love them to death. I up front, I wasn't looking at that initially, but and if you have a family that has good boundaries and good moral and faithful background, and you know, nothing against people that are raised by parents that have been divorced. I mean, God bless them, but it is a lot easier with a husband and wife, and the statistics show it. You're raised in a family where your mother and father stay together. You're more likely to stay together, and I was blessed, and my wife were both blessed to have parents that stay together for long term. So
yeah, same here.
We looked up to them.
It was a blessing to have good in-laws. It's like you said, when you marry the whole family, right? Mm-hmm. Because they're going to be coming over for Thanksgiving dinner or for Christmas, and you're going to be involved, and they're going to be involved in your life too. And you need to understand, is there a whole lot of issues there? And sometimes those issues don't really show up until after you get married, where maybe the wife that you married, she grew up a certain way, and while you're dating, things are really rosy, but you get married and all of a sudden it's like now you shift into the way she grew up or however her mother was or whatever. And now you're like, what happened to the girl I was with before?
Better get to know that mother-in-law quick.
Better get to know the whole family. And, there can be issues. Again, I'm not saying that don't marry someone where there's issues in the family. Recognize those issues, work through them, talk to them about the person. If you're thinking about marriage with this person, say, hey, how are we going to handle this? These things. One of the things is alcoholism. Mm-hmm. It runs in my family. Mm-hmm. And that's one of the things that I always tell my sons is that watch yourself, because no one ever grows up saying, oh, I want to be an alcoholic.
Sure.
It just gradually happens. And if it's runs in your family and you're not aware of it, then over the years, it creeps up on you, and those type of things ruin families.
It's a little worse over time.
It does. And so that's one of the things you want to see about the other family. Is there an issue with alcohol? And is the person that you're dating drink a lot? And if they do, then you can kind of see the picture here. Dad's an alcoholic. My potential future husband drinks a lot.
Yeah.
Where are we headed here? It's no secret, right? It's pretty obvious that if it continues in that manner, he's probably going to be just like the dad.
And some people can handle it better than others as well.
Absolutely. And if you can't, then the decision needs to be made. I'm not going to drink, or if I do, it's going to be socially and it's going to be limited, and I'm going to have accountability. My wife, I'm going to listen to her if she tells me, because if, you enter into that relationship and say, look, if you start to drink too much and I tell you, are you going to do something about it? Or are you going to be prideful and say, oh, I can handle it. It's my business, and, I don't have a problem. That's the parts that needs to be discussed prior to entering into those kind of situations. You also have people who were abused.
Sure. They're
in different ways. I mean, sexually, physically, verbal. If you see, mom or dad, it doesn't have to be just the dad. It could be, I've known wives that are so verbally abusive to their husbands. Mm-hmm. And then that carries on into the daughter's marriage. She thinks that's the way that you handle things, is through verbal abuse. And of course, it can go either way, husband and wife. Is that some kind of baggage that's in that family that you're going to need to work through prior to getting married and talk about it? Say, this is not how we're going to live. And if you can't avoid this verbal abuse or whatever kind of abuse that they may have experienced, then it's a no-go. You need to, it may be hard. You may have very strong feelings for this person, but those strong feelings are not going to overcome the tremendous heartache that's going to come as a result of alcoholism, drug abuse, sexual abuse, any of these other psychological problems that they may happen in their life. And even if, like you had mentioned, if the parents are divorced, how does the person who you're going to marry view marriage? Is to them, oh, well, marriage is something that you can get out of. You decide later on you're not in love anymore.
Unfortunately. Yeah.
And you need to have those discussions with them. So how do you view marriage? And sometimes by having the negative aspect in a family makes that child go the opposite direction, right? If a dad's an alcoholic, you may have a son that goes, that is the most repulsive thing. I don't ever want my children to go through that. So I'm not even going to drink, or I'm going to make sure that that doesn't happen to me. And that's important too. So can good people come out of those situations? Absolutely. Absolutely. But you have to talk about it. You need to be able to relate with your future spouse. How do you feel about that? And I'm never going to drink. Alcoholism runs in my family and it's going to ruin my family when I get married. Well, good. That's what I want to hear.
Yeah, and I've seen situations where one spouse can handle some drinks and have some fun and not go crazy, but the other one can't, and it causes drama and problems, and it always boils down to, if you're gonna stay with this woman or this man, you're gonna have to give it up as well, because it just don't work like that. But yeah, that can change the dynamics.
Yeah, and another thing for the ladies, again, in general, women tend to be more relational. They deal with matters of the heart much easier and much better than men do. Not that men can't, but we typically are more oriented towards mind and visual, right? Mm-hmm. And doing things. And women are more oriented towards relationships. That's just how it is.
They like to be hugged.
They like to be hugged. Yeah. They like to talk to others. Yeah. I mean, they'll tell their friends everything about their family. You're like, why are you telling your friend about us or whatever? It's like, us guys, we don't tend to delve into those things very much at all, if any at all. But for ladies, because they are so much more related to matters of the heart, ladies, you're going to need to find a man that is so dedicated to you that you know that he's willing to die for you. We talked a little bit about this in this other podcast on how to create peace in your family.
Love the woman as Christ loved the church.
Absolutely. Ephesians chapter 5. Exactly. Love your wife like Christ loved the church, that he gave himself for her. You need to know that your husband believes this, that no matter what happens, he's not going to leave. When a woman knows that he's willing to go to the ultimate ends of the earth to make sure that this marriage is preserved as much as possible, and that they're never going to leave, no matter what happens, no matter how difficult things get, no matter how many disagreements we have, I'm not leaving this relationship. When you know that, then after you have an argument, divorce never enters into your mind.
Sure.
Not even remotely. Why? Because you know that this person is not going to leave.
Solid foundation.
Absolutely. And you need to tell each other that and mean it and be able to say it truthfully, that no matter what happens, I'm not going to leave. Because that is, I think, a fear that many women have, is that husband's going to get tired. He's going to get angry. There's going to be one too many arguments, and he's going to go. He's gone.
That gal at work's been a little nicer to him.
Yeah. So it's important for a woman's heart, because they relate so much more with the heart, that they know that the man they're marrying is going to be there.
Sure.
And I think that's important. So discuss that. Look for that, ladies. A guy who's willing to lay his life down for you is the kind of guy that you want to look for. And this basically an image of Christ, right? An example of who Christ is with the church. That's what kind of man you want.
Ride or die, as they say.
Yes, that's right. Another thing, I don't know, there's a whole lot of, now with the internet, with these phones and computers and stuff, there's so much content online now that can really be detrimental to marriages. One of those things is pornography. I think that women should ask their potential husbands outright, look them in the eye and ask them, do you view pornography?
Mm-hmm.
And you'll be able to tell if they're lying.
Yeah, it's ruined a lot of good men, for sure.
Absolutely.
Throwing them off.
Don't marry a man that's addicted to porn. Why? Because the expectations that he's going to have for what the sexual married life is going to be is totally off the charts. It's not reasonable.
Sure.
And if he doesn't overcome that before you get married, don't marry. It's my recommendation.
Yeah.
Right. Again, you can go in this with full knowledge, knowing that if that's what he's doing, you still want to marry him, just know that that is a marriage buster.
It's Satan has definitely used pornography to rip a lot of good marriages and good men away from the church and away from the family these days, and it's tough. There's a false representation of who a woman really is. I mean,
right.
We'll leave it at that.
That's right. And so to me, it's very important that no matter how much your heart yearns for this man, and you want this man to be the father of your children and whatnot, this is a huge red flag, because it's going to, in time, ruin your marriage if he doesn't overcome it. There's nothing good that comes from it.
It's not real.
No, it's not real.
It's acting.
And it's a sin.
Yeah.
Right. So if you're a believer, it's like, this is sinful behavior. And when you live in sinful behavior, you reap the consequences of that sinful behavior, and it tears marriages apart. I'd mentioned before too, another thing we just talked about was alcoholism. That's a major one, to make sure that you don't marry a guy who says, like you said, hey, every weekend, me and my buddies, we're going to go fishing and drinking. That's just the way it's going to be, because that's what I do.
That's the way it's going to be.
That's the way it's going to be. And if that's the case, if he's going to be going out, getting drunk with his buddies, or he can't say no to a drink, big red flag. Just know what you're getting into. If you marry someone who has an issue with alcohol, it's going to be destructive. I don't know. What do you think about guys and their self-centeredness?
I mean, I think we're all self-centered at the end of the day, and some fight it better than others. But yeah, I have a lot of young men that I counsel and love on and help out in many different backgrounds, and most of them don't have fathers like us or mothers like our wives, and these days they'll start dating a young lady, and what do? They jump in the sack together right off the bat, and I always tell them, I was like, you can see the signs, and you can really get to know a person if you can leave that out of the situation and hold back on that, because you have mental clarity, and a lot of these things we're talking about today, it'll come up in a couple weeks or a couple months, but as soon as you engage, you forget about all that, as we know. We're talking about 14, 15-year-old young men. I mean, they're saying they have one thing on their mind, and there's some truth to that. But yeah, if these young men can keep their peckers in their pants for a little longer, they'll really get to know that young lady.
Yeah, and not only that, but the physical relationship tends to overshadow the red flags.
Yeah.
You don't tend to either see the red flags, or you tend to ignore the red flags.
And I've been there. I ain't judging.
Yeah. And it's not something that that you're going into clearly to see who you're truly marrying. And again, this is the second most important decision you're going to make in your entire life, is who you marry. And you need to know who that person is. By having strictly a physical relationship, you miss the red flags, both men and women. I mean, there's women that are going to be what's called high maintenance, right? Mm-hmm. They want to have the lavish lifestyles. They want to have, be able to stay at home and just shop and do whatever.
House in the hills, Mercedes-Benz, baby.
Exactly. If that's the kind of woman you want to marry, just know that that's what you're going into, and the relationship may be a very superficial relationship. If you're okay with that, then I don't recommend it.
You better go to work at 6 a.m.
or get 2 jobs. I don't recommend it, simply because at the end of the day, men's hearts are also important. We know when we love someone that we want that relationship to be profound, not superficial. And so if that's the kind of relationship you've established with this person, the very superficial one, and it's never going to get to a deeper relationship, then you're either going to resent that marriage or that person, or you're going to be lonely and heartbroken because you're not getting to the depth of that union with that person that you're desiring, that you're looking for.
We all get old, and you can only Botox so long.
That's right. So self-centeredness, this narcissistic behavior, has no place in marriage. When people talk about, love will get us through everything, most people think that it's that feeling that you have for that person that's going to get you through these things. But as a Christian, we know that love is putting the needs of the other before your own needs, like Christ did for us. He put our need to be saved ahead of his need to stay alive and sacrificed himself so that you and I could have eternal life. That's what marriage is about. It's about self-sacrifice. It's about giving of self, putting away our own selfish desires for the good of your spouse and your children. And if you can do that, that's authentic love. And that kind of love will get you through anything. Why? Because you're willing to sacrifice.
Well, would you agree and say that also that love is, you got to work at it like anything else, and great love and passionate love is, it's a fruit of hard work as well.
It is. And as I mentioned before, love is not a feeling, it's an action. And because it's an action, it requires you to act. It requires you to make a conscious decision that you're going to forego a particular pleasure or benefit or comfort for the sake of someone else. And that kind of love will get you through anything because you are putting someone else before you. The saying that every morning, every day, as I mentioned before, I have a little sign that says, I'm third. And I have to remember that because I have to fight pride every single day. That God comes first, others are second, and I'm third. And when we keep those in perspective, then you're going to understand what it means to be a husband and a father. You're going to put the needs of your wife and your children before yours. And that's how you have a successful marriage. If you're not willing to find someone that's willing to sacrifice of themselves, then I don't know, it's going to be hard for them to learn that later on, or you to teach them that if they don't want to learn. It's not a trait that comes naturally to us to be selfless, to sacrifice. It's not always natural to most of us. But, I don't know. One of the other things you had mentioned earlier that I thought that was interesting is that it's important to marry someone that has a faith that is in harmony with yours. If you're a person of strong faith and you marry someone not only with different faith, but let's say with no faith at all, it's going to be potentially difficult because remember that the most important one of those three things that I told you was your relationship with God. That is the most important one. And if the person that you marry, which is the second most important thing, doesn't have that in common with you, then your priorities are not the same. And when your priorities are not the same, then you tend to clash during those times. And that's not good for a marriage either. If you do, I married someone who was Lutheran, I'm Catholic, it was important to know and understand the differences, and talk about a few things before you get married. If you can work through those things, they can work.
Yeah.
But it's going to be tough. Even if you're both Christians, it's going to be tough, especially if one particular faith is antagonistic to the other.
Yeah.
And if that's the case, which a lot of non-Catholic Christians don't regard Catholicism as a very good religion or very good faith, then there's going to be contention there, especially when you want to raise your kids Catholic or of whatever faith you are, and the other person doesn't agree. Those need to be talked about before you get married. Otherwise, that's going to be probably a deal breaker there for some people in their marriage, and it's going to be a heartbreak.
Yeah, yes. My mother was raised in just a beautiful Southern Baptist household, and my father was Roman Catholic, and she knew, when they got married, he wasn't leaving. I mean, so she'll tell you the story. It was simple as that. He wasn't leaving the church, so she knew if she wanted to raise her family in one church, and that's what it was about up front. It had anything to do with Catholicism. It just, I want to raise my babies in the same church in the same pews, and so she converted, and now is probably a better Christian, better Catholic than myself for sure. But bringing that family together under one roof is very important.
It is important, and again, it can still work. Don't get me wrong, but it's just one more thing that you have to work through before you get married, and then you're going to have to work through after you get married, because there's going to be a few surprises that you didn't think about discussing prior to getting married because you just weren't in that situation. And when those situations arise, you're going to have to, as a couple, work through them and make sure that you're putting, again, the needs of the other before your own, that it's not your pride that is really be the focus of those resolutions.
Those little demons will pop up.
They do. and they're more than happy to do it at any time in any occasion in your marriage. And it's important to be strong together because it's that unity between you and your spouse that is going to get you through all those temptations, all those attacks from the outside, whether it's people or spiritual forces.
Yeah, you said it. The more you can work out, at least know what you're dealing with, and the devil likes to divide and conquer. So if there's cracks, he's going to make
focus.
worse. Yeah,
he's going to focus on those cracks and try to widen those and split you up. So the main thing behind all this is be aware, look at the red flags. Sometimes your friends are great people to ask. And this is one of the other things I tell young girls is like, ask your friends, what do you think about this guy?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, tell them to be honest.
Yeah.
And they'll be like, he's a jerk
Mm-hmm.
or whatever. Or he's always flirting with these other girls. I see him,
Hound dog.
listen.
Yeah.
Right. Listen to your friends or to your family. They may see something you don't see. And a lot of times there's resentment there because maybe dad says something and they're like, Dad, you just don't want me to get married, or you just don't like him because whatever. We need to be honest with each other as parents with our children. We have to be honest and not tell them negative things just so that they don't marry that person. Cause maybe, I don't know, you don't like where they grew up or the fact that we're a rodeo cowboy or something like that, you're just trying to protect your dog. That's not a good reason to tell them not to marry that person.
Yeah.
Be honest, and you see red flags, mention them, right? And then leave it. They're going to have to make that choice themselves.
Yeah, that's a double-edged sword. It's I had a friend, a young lady, it was a while back, and she was dating a guy, and he was a prick, he was a jerk, and he was rude to her, he was mean to her, and I didn't like that, and I wish I'd have known him when I was younger, but I told her, I was like, you need to leave that fellow alone. He's a jerk, and he ain't gonna be good to you. Yeah. And she married him anyway. So
Well, like I said, as long as
they still invited me to the wedding, so I guess she didn't tell him what I said.
As long as you know what you're getting into and that you're going to have to deal with this and work through it, and you struggle more or whatever, do it. You do what you want to do. But if you want to minimize the struggle and minimize the heartache and all those things, because they'll be there. Heartache's going to be there. Difficulty is going to be there. But if you want to minimize that, try to follow some of these rules before getting married and really just try to address these things because the main thing is you have to work through it. That's the main thing.
So what about us folks that are already married?
Yeah, that's a tough one because you may be listening going, dude, it's too late for me. I already picked my partner here and we're stuck to each other. We covered a lot of that information in episode 8.
It's not too late.
No, it's not too late.
I've worked through a lot, and it's not too late.
It's not too late because Lord knows I wasn't the man that I am today. That when my wife and I got married, and I needed to grow up, I needed to be a better husband, a better father, and everything else in every respect. But we covered episode 8 on how to create peace in your family. This is part of already for couples who are married. But there's a couple of things that I could throw out that I didn't cover last time in episode 8, is one of those things is to take care of yourself in your marriage. And what I mean by that is, look presentable to your spouse. A lot of times,
brush your teeth.
At least brush your teeth, right? Like, for example, a lot of people are working at home nowadays. Yeah. Right. Well, sometimes people don't get dressed at all. They get out in their pajamas. They grab their coffee and hair's messed up, haven't brushed their teeth, haven't done anything, and they go to work. Yeah. Right. And it's like, okay, that's nice to be able to do that, but you really need to take care of yourself, right? If you work at home, get dressed. Take the time to go ahead and get dressed, shower, ladies, if you're working from home, put on a little makeup. You don't have to get all decked out or anything, but just make yourself presentable so that when your husband, or if your husband working at home and your wife sees you, they don't go, man, he looks horrible, that there's something about taking care of yourself that you're telling your spouse, I care how I look for you.
Nothing wrong with putting a little icing on the cake.
No, nothing wrong. Like you said, brush your hair, brush your teeth, have a good hygiene, right? Take a shower, shave, Don't grow out this scraggly beard and just because you're working from home and look terrible. If you're a little overweight, work on that too. And I know it's hard, and I'm not trying to be judgmental because I have issues with weight myself.
We could all tighten up a little bit.
I'm telling you. But here's the thing that I know that people could do this, because I've known people that have gotten divorced, and no sooner, and this is how I know they got divorced. I didn't know they were divorced.
Yeah.
They're in their 40s, whatever, and they got braces. They've lost weight.
Get on that Ozempic.
They look fantastic. And you're like, why is this person,
what happened? Yeah.
45-year-old lady wearing braces?
Back in the hunt.
Exactly. It's like, well, had you done that prior to that and put as much effort into it before the divorce, and I'm not saying that's going to fix everything, but at least that's one thing that your spouse looks and says, you know what? They care. They still care. It's not like the surprise where, after the honeymoon, all of a sudden you married a whole different woman, or a whole different man, where they're like, who are you? I have no clue who you are. And you change right after you get married and say, well, okay, we're committed. I can now relax and be a slob or whatever. That's not good. That's not good. Take care of yourself. There's no reason why we can't do that. And I think that's important. One of the other things is to listen more than you talk. We tend to want to talk too much, say too many things. It's important to listen and really listen. Because we guys, I know a lot of times it's easy just to shut off the hearing aid, or whatever, and just say, I'm not even listening.
Selective hearing.
Be present, in other words, when you talk to each other. Look each other in the eye. Don't be sitting there scrolling through your phone while
I've had to work at that one for sure.
While your spouse is talking to you, because that tells them what you're telling me is not important.
Yeah, shows disrespect.
It is. It's disrespectful. And you say, well, I can, do both at the same time, multitask. It's like, you know what? Maybe you can, but it says something whenever you look at the person and you're present for them, and that they feel respected because you're looking at them. And then one of the other things that I would say is, if you're having difficulty in your marriage or whatever, one thing to do is make an effort every day to say at least one good thing to your spouse. Just one. More if you can. But I guarantee you that changes the attitude of things. Say things like, hey, thanks for picking up the kids today. Or thanks for all you do for the family, man.
Your hair looks nice.
Your hair looks nice today. You look especially nice today.
Baby, you look good in them jeans.
There you go. Thanks for listening, right? Say, oh, thank you for listening. I know this was boring, but thank you for listening. That means a lot. Anything like that. And if you don't know what to say, you know what? Sit down and just make a list of things. Just go through and then pick one each day and start saying something nice, because that right there, especially for women, when men tend to not to say a whole lot of nice things about their wives. They may think them.
Sure.
They may not have any issues with anything with their wives, but they don't say it. And women need to hear it. So as a man, I would recommend that you make an effort that every day at least one nice thing is said to your spouse. And when you do that, they're going to notice.
Hey, and same with us. We like, hey, I like when my lady says, hey, baby, you look good in them jeans,
No doubt. No doubt. And I think that's important too. So if you're listening, ladies, say good things to your husband, show him respect and tell them that you appreciate how hard they work and all these different things. We need to show that to one another. And I think that helps the day to pass and be much more cheerful, because it's not all about nagging and complaining. There needs to be positive things in there also. There's going to be difficulties in marriages, in every marriage.
That's a guarantee.
That's a guarantee. But we need to do our part to not contribute to those difficulties. The Lord told us in the scriptures in Luke chapter 9:23 that we're all going to have to carry a cross. Jesus said, if any man's going to come after me, let him deny himself and take up his cross daily and follow me. Every day we're carrying a cross. What I would advise to you is that as a husband or a wife, don't be part of that weight of the cross that your spouse has to carry. Don't be your spouse's cross. That's the last thing you should be. You should be like Simon the Cyrenian who helped Jesus carry his cross. You need to help your spouse with their crosses. Sweetheart, how was your day today? Oh man, what was the hardest part about your day today? Well, this was the hardest part. What can I do to help? Just those words right there. It's like, well, you could pick up the kids for me, or you could do this or that. Then go do it. Transforms your relationship. And that's what love is. It's about serving others. It's about the gift of self. So in your marriages, if you're already married, there's plenty of things you can do to improve that. And if you want more details, go to episode 8, Creating Peace in Your Family, in our episodes here. And search 185, put in a shameless plug there. Search 185 and listen to that. And I guarantee you that as your relationship with God grows, your relationship with your spouse will grow, and there can be peace in your family.
Yeah, I think as I've gotten older, I had a good marriage, and most of my issues in our youth was, first of our marriage were baggage that I was carrying necessarily that needed to be worked out, daddy issues that I had. But I hit that point, years ago or a few years ago that I don't want a good marriage. I don't want a bad marriage. I don't want an average marriage. I want a great marriage. I want an awesome marriage. So I try to get up every day and work towards that. And some days it's 2 steps forward and 1 step back. But I think that's definitely what we should all try to thrive for is a great marriage. And then people will see that and they will hopefully follow.
Amen to that.
Amen. Well, hey, God bless you, brother. Have a good day. Thank you for joining us today, and we look forward to seeing you for the next episode. And hey, in the interim, if you don't mind, go on Facebook and YouTube and like us, and please subscribe to Search 185 and tell all your friends about us. Thank you.
And if you want more information, go to our website, search185.org, for more information.
Thank you for joining us for the Search 185 podcast, where we discuss what it means to be human and made in the image and likeness of God.